Welcome to the DCTV News at Noon program. I'm Kelsey Kiesling.
And I'm Kendra Cook. The Southwest TV Translator Association underwrites the news, and Dolores County Broadcasting Network provides the support for DCTV.
Here at the News at Noon show, we assemble the best and most interesting news we can find from the area, and Jerry Tope brings you the local weather and related news. Give us a call with news tips or topics you'd like to see covered. The number is 677-4119.
We appreciate that you're watching DCTV. Today's show is live on Tuesday at noon and rebroadcast at 2:30 and 8 p.m. and again re-aired on Friday at noon, 2:30 and 8. Yesterday was National Bologna Day. We missed that one, but today is National Greasy Foods Day. It's October 25th, 2016. And now, here's the news. Two kinds of trouble affected Durangans recently, according to the Durango Herald. A clogged sewer spewed about 2,000 gallons of foulness down a hillside and into a culvert on Monday morning near the wastewater treatment plant in Durango. None of the discharge made it to the Animas River or into stormwater drains that lead to the river, said Steve Salka, City Utilities Director. Drivers heading north on South Camino del Rio most likely would have seen the sludge gushing up to 3 feet into the air from a manhole on the east side of the road, he said. It was reported about 7:45 a.m. Corey Griffiths, chief operator for a city construction crew, put on gloves and waist-high waders and climbed into the sewer system to collect about 7 bundles of fibrous roots that bunched up near a 90-degree turn in the system before the sludge makes its way to the wastewater treatment plant. Vector trucks sucked up as much of the runoff as possible from a culvert. Salka said he'll report the sewer break to the state of Colorado, but no sanctions are expected since the effluent stayed out of the river. This incident was followed by Atmos Energy working to restore natural gas service that is affecting several hundred customers in the Durango area, according to the city government. The outage began about 3:30 p.m. Monday. The cause is under investigation. The outage is affecting residential customers east of downtown. Atmos technicians will be going door to door to relight natural gas appliances for businesses and residential customers. It is the second major gas outage within a month in the downtown area. Anyone encountering problems with natural gas service should call Atmos Energy Customer Service Center at 888-286-6700. If anyone smells gas, they should leave the area immediately and call 911 and the Atmos Energy Emergency Line, 866-322-8667.
According to the Cortez Journal, a state senator joined a lawsuit filed in U.S. District Court in Colorado on Monday seeking to block an archaic law that makes it a crime to show one's completed ballot to others, including taking ballot selfies. The issue caused a stir on social media last week after the Denver District Attorney's Office issued a news release reminding voters that taking a photo of a completed ballot and showing it to others, including on social media, is a misdemeanor crime, punishable by up to 1 year in jail and a $1,000 fine. Some criticized the DA's office for focusing on trivial issues. The DA's office said the reminder was meant to be friendly, pointing out that it is not responsible for the law, which dates to the 1890s and remains on the books. State Senator Owen Hill, Republican of Colorado Springs, is seeking to quickly block the law for the remainder of the election season. He said the legislature could then attempt to address the issue in the next session. The case also seeks a decision that the law is unconstitutional as well as permanent relief from the law. Hill is a co-plaintiff in the case with Scott Romano, an 18-year-old University of Denver student who is participating in his first election. Romano, a Democrat, sits on the other side of the political spectrum from Hill. It's important to note that some issues like this, when it comes down to constitutionality, are not political issues, Romano said. Owen and I can disagree on pretty much everything else. Romano used social media to organize student walkouts in 2014 when opposition was raised to controversial curriculum decisions by the school board in Jefferson County. The lawsuit was filed against Secretary of State Wayne Williams and Attorney General Cynthia Kaufman, both Republicans in their official capacities.
Reported in the Durango Herald, the cause of the Pagosa Springs downtown fire is still under investigation. Now, 3 days after fire gutted a historical building in Pagosa Springs, investigators continue to search for the origin and cause. The building, built in 1900 or 1902, is a total loss, said Megan Macht, spokeswoman for the Pagosa Fire Protection District. The fire was reported about 1:05 a.m. Saturday at the Adobe Building at 475 Lewis Street, which housed Bear Creek Saloon and Restaurant and 15 smaller businesses. The Adobe Building is catty-corner from the Archuleta County Courthouse and is visible from San Juan Street, the main thoroughfare, through Pagosa Springs. The Pagosa Springs School District and other businesses have offered temporary office space to help some displaced businesses. No one was injured. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, or ATF, is investigating the cause, but because the second floor collapsed and the building is unstable, it has been difficult to access certain areas, Mox said. She declined to rule out foul play. Quote, right now, the ATF is not ruling out anything, only because they need to keep their head clear and all the options open while they investigate it, she said. Firefighters are confident they will identify the cause. It's going to take some time, she said. They do have to dig through the rubble and find some specific pieces. I think they're really going to be able to narrow down pretty quickly as far as exactly what happened in there. They're doing witness interviews and stuff like that. She could not recall the last time a fire this significant affected Pagosa Springs. It's been a very long time, she said, not only because there are a lot of businesses in there, but that it's a very historic building.
According to the Cortez Journal, Espanola Valley High School Principal Tom Graves thinks the laws don't work. Last academic year, under a previous principal, the high school's student body had a truancy rate of nearly 43%, among the highest in New Mexico. Graves wants to introduce radical changes to reshape Espanola's culture of truancy. If the laws were effective, New Mexico wouldn't be ranked 50th in the country for education, he said, and we wouldn't have the lowest attendance rates in the country. To improve its consistently high truancy rates, last academic year, Espanola Valley High School implemented a new truancy and dropout prevention program aimed at shaping up poor attendance. The results are yet to be determined, but debate still rages within the school about the best method for battling truancy. Marcela Maestas and Jesus Mays are student success specialists working on Espanola Valley's truancy and dropout prevention program. The program was sparked by a grant from the New Mexico Public Education Department introduced last summer under the administration of former Espanola Superintendent Bobby Gutierrez and former Principal Leslie Romero Kilmer. Maestas and Mays work closely with students who have struggled to attend school or arrive on time, or who have struggled academically. Intervention by success specialists takes place in what Graves has called Accountability School, a separate period of academic and behavior instruction at the high school from 3 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Having worked closely with students since last summer, Maestas believes a lack of accountability by past administrations is to blame. According to Maestas, a particular problem is high turnover among administrative positions in the district, which has had 3 superintendents and 3 principals within the last 3 years. Both Maestas and Mays noted that many students simply leave early on Fridays or arrive late on Mondays, and generally arrive late to school in the mornings, sometimes more than an hour past the tardy bell, which signals the beginning of instruction at 7:55 a.m. Given Rio Arriba County's 24.1% poverty rate, students may also be absent for a more pressing reason. Many high school students have to babysit their younger siblings or work. It's a lot of choices, Mays said. Either go to school or take care of your family. They're already experiencing adulthood by carrying those responsibilities.
I'll be your Huckleberry. Well, that's a point of contention for bears, according to a report from High Country News in the Cortez Journal. The current debate over removing certain grizzly bear populations from endangered species protection often strays into arguments over hunting. But grizzlies might have less to fear from hunters than they do from the possible demise of an unobtrusive berry. Studies of grizzly and black bear scat show that huckleberries, at times, can make up to 15 to 50% of their diet. Given that female grizzlies can't reproduce without sufficient body fat, about 20% of their total weight, the barely knee-high huckleberry gains ecological significance far beyond its size. Tabitha Graves is a wildlife biologist with the USGS in northwest Montana who has devoted most of her professional life to grizzlies. She thinks that understanding how climate change affects huckleberries, one of their main food sources, is crucial to understanding how it will affect the bears themselves. Graves places a grid roughly 8 inches by 8 inches and open in the middle like a picture frame over a huckleberry bush and calls numbers off to her assistant. 3 ripe berries, 5 white, 2 green. The whiteness is caused by a fungal infection called monolinea. In 2014, Graves launched a pilot project to compile a comprehensive record of this beguiling berry in order to figure out how changes in climate might affect its growth and production. She's seeking to answer essential questions. Where and under what conditions do huckleberries grow best? Her careful counting and documentation of the health of huckleberry patches is intended to help forest and park managers make the best management decisions they can in an uncertain future, which is always uncertain. That's why it's in the future. The previous baseline for Graves' own work was set by Catherine Kendall, her predecessor at West Glacier's USGS office in the 1980s. Kendall's work focused on berry productivity, and Graves is monitoring many of the same sites to understand how sunlight exposure, slope aspect, snowpack, and other factors affect the plant's timing and growth. Grizzly bears are generally seen as highly adaptable. Shifts in temperature and snowfall are likely to impact food sources from huckleberries and service berries to salmon and white bark pine nuts. And these changes, along with temperature fluctuations that have altered the times bears enter and exit their dens, intensify the possibility of conflict with humans, grizzlies' greatest survival challenge. The pilot project is scheduled to run for 3 more years, depending on funding, and even then the information will likely be incomplete. As Graves points out, her observation sites are located only in spots humans find easily accessible, which aren't necessarily the same as those preferred by grizzlies. She envisions a study that relies instead on tracking grizzly bears, following their natural ranges to get a fine-grained idea of food sources and uses. To me, it seems obvious that we all have to adapt and modify behavior, and as often as we can, stop to smell the roses or eat a ripe huckleberry or 2.
According to the Durango Herald, firefighters say warmer than normal weather, clear skies, and low humidity are intensifying a wildfire burning near West Cliff, west of Pueblo, that has destroyed 9 homes. Officials on Sunday urged drivers to watch out for higher levels of smoke on the road that can impair visibility. They also warned drivers not to slow down or stop unexpectedly to observe firefighting efforts. Airplanes and helicopters, including 2 Blackhawks from the Colorado National Guard, are being used to douse hot spots and reinforce fire lines to keep the Junkins fire from spreading toward Beulah or homes in Custer County. The fire has burned about 28 square miles. Some residents remain evacuated from their homes. Officials say it started last week when high winds blew a metal outbuilding into a utility pole and knocked down a power line. And now here's our weather report.
As you can see from the regional satellite, there's a clearing moving our way, and all the big activity is north and wrapping around to the east of the Four Corners. These small sprinkles that we've had put about 1,500 hundredths on the ground in the southwest end of Dolores County between 1 a.m. and 7 a.m. this morning, all in a slow enough fashion with enough break time in between that there was very little mud anywhere for long. But it sure made for a nice clean smell for a while. The system that brought it in will slowly move through, clearing steadily through the day and into the night, with possibilities of a few more light sprinkles as it goes. This afternoon, an inbound high pressure has begun moving in, and the low moves away. And tomorrow into Friday, it will keep things dry and mostly sunny, and nice days into Friday. Late Friday afternoon through Saturday, another flow will bring some possibility of moisture in, but as for now, it's loose and any snow levels will be high, and the main activity is likely to be well north of the Four Corners country, and it's too early to tell more. So, warm and dry in the south and southeast, except for the southeast corner of Georgia. The center of the country and the eastern U.S. through the start of the week, we'll see dry temperatures and a low moving in from the Central Plains to the Ohio Valley by Thursday morning. In the upper high plains, some flash flooding is possible today. And to the north of that, low rain will spread to the upper Midwest and Great Lakes as well, with some mixing of snow in the interior northeast at the beginning that will turn to rain. From mid-California and through the Pacific Northwest, rain and some of it heavy, with mountain snow in parts of the northern and central Rockies. In terms of temperatures, it will continue feeling like fall across the northern and eastern U.S. Cold conditions will now begin for New England, with scattered snow showers for the mountains and highs only in the 40s. Our high temps for the next 5 will hover in the low 70s, and lows will be in the mid to upper 30s. Mostly sunny conditions will take over the midweek, and then somewhat cloudy will be possible for the weekend. And tomorrow we'll give the latest on the moisture possibilities for those days. Now back to the news.
According to the Durango Herald, Americans are addicted to their jobs. U.S. workers not only put in more hours than workers do almost anywhere else, they're also increasingly retiring later and taking fewer vacation days. A new study tries to measure precisely how much more Americans work than Europeans do overall. The answer: the average person in Europe works 19% less than the average person in the U.S. That's about 258 fewer hours per year, or about an hour less each weekday. Another way to look at it, U.S. workers put in almost 25% more hours than Europeans. Hours worked vary a lot by country, according to the unpublished working paper by economists Alexander Bick of Arizona State University, Bettina Brueggemann of McMaster University in Ontario, and Nicola Fuchs Schundeln of Goethe University, Frankfurt. Swiss work habits are most similar to Americans, while Italians are the least likely to be at work, putting in 29% fewer hours per year than Americans do. The study was designed to make it easier to compare countries to each other by capturing the overall hours per person, not just for people with jobs. That incorporates not just the length of the typical work week, but also retirement, vacation, unemployment, and other time spent out of the workforce. Not all time spent at the office, shop, or factory is time well spent. Output is also critical to the productivity equation. But it's important to have a reliable calculation of hours worked per person to accurately measure productivity, the amount of economic value nations get out of each hour their citizens spend working. The study's detailed data could help researchers figure out why Americans toil so much longer than Europeans and which factors most influence productivity. One theory is that Americans work longer hours because their additional effort is more likely to pay off. People earn a wider range of incomes in the U.S., so workers have an incentive to try harder to move up the job ladder because a promotion is worth more, said Dora Geshiva, an economist at the University of North Carolina, Greensboro, citing a study that compared the U.S. with Germany.
Last week's CO2 reached 401.65, week before last 401.57, 1 year ago in 2015 was 398.49, and 10 years ago was 378.94. You and I have heard claims of weather patterns and their changes over hundreds and even a few thousand years, some places millions. Perhaps some of us are aware of ice cores and how scientists study them for information on climate in the past, and more are aware of tree rings. But in the info in a tree ring and ice core studies are only a couple of sources. One of our climatology pieces touched on soil studies, but today, for the times when we may be tempted, as I was, to decry the lack of records, consider this. From research published in the National Geographic's April of 2016, Michelle Nihus noted these interesting bits. Every year since at least 1443, the priests who live at the shrine on the edge of Lake Suwa have carefully recorded the date a ridge of ice appears. In 1693, on the other side of the world, a Finnish merchant named Olaf Album started recording the date and time of the spring ice breakup on the Torn River, which forms part of the border between Sweden and Finland. Although Album's record keeping was interrupted in 1715 because he had to flee a Russian invasion, he resumed it after he returned home in 1721. It has been carried on by other observers ever since. Scientists almost always have to use indirect evidence, like those tree rings, ice cores, or pollen deposits. But the ice records from Japan and Finland, which are the longest of their kind, give a more direct look at the climate our distant, but not too distant, ancestors experienced. John Magnuson, an ecologist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, looking at the Japanese and Finnish data since the 1990s, recently teamed up with ecologist Sapna Sharma of Toronto's York University to analyze these records. The results of their study, published today in Nature Science Reports, show that since the Industrial Revolution, changes in the timing of freeze and thaw have accelerated, and suggest that the yearly rhythm of ice in both places has become more closely tied to concentrations of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Extreme events have become more common too. In the first 250 years, for instance, there were only 3 years during which the lake did not freeze. Between 1955 and 2004, there were 12 freeze-free years on Lake Sewer. Between 2005 and 2014, there were 5, and also no freeze in 2015 and 16 as well. So that's 7 pretty recent years. There are also the journals of bird watchers, botanists, and other observers for evidence of climate change. Henry David Thoreau's notes on Walden Pond in the mid-1800s show that some flowers once bloomed much later than they do now. And naturalist Joseph Grinnell's surveys of the California wildlife in the early 1900s show that some mammal species are moving northward and uphill from their earlier territories. These observations of a relatively recent past are detailed pictures taken over just a few years and compared with records from a century or so ago. But the ice records from Japan and Finland tell a much more complete story of the changes humans have made on the climate over time.
According to the Durango Herald, the Durango Adult Education Center announces that Stephanie Morin, coordinator of the high school equivalency program, was awarded the 2016 Adult Education Leader of the Year award. The Colorado Adult Education Professional Association awarded Morin during its annual conference October 13th in Denver. Morin was chosen by her adult education peers for doing extraordinary work to empower and encourage students and colleagues. She is a current Durango School District 9R School Board member and has spent the last 16 years with the Durango Adult Education Center to positively affect thousands of students in their pursuit of a better life. The Colorado Adult Education Professional Association provides leadership to the field of adult education and family literacy by offering opportunities for professional development, advocacy, and resource sharing to improve the quality of life for every Coloradan.
This political season, increasingly distasteful for all parties involved, is showing itself to be the pile of corrupt manure shoveling that has become the accepted norm, seemingly on all levels of our democratic republic system. And that's some smelly stuff. That's not to say that there aren't some good eggs out there, but too far and few between is something most people do agree upon. While citizens are in real need of health care, of heating, of basic food and care needs, of jobs and an upward economy, the top echelons continue to reveal so-called evidence that they are all crooked or prejudiced or so full of themselves that they remain above the law and not held to any standards the rest of the 330 million Americans abide by. So the most recent spotlight on malfeasant political activity, and little heard about on the lamestream media, is something called Project Veritas. Don't know what it is? Well, according to their website of the same name, ProjectVeritasAction.com has released the 3rd video in a multi-part series that is sending shockwaves through the DNC and the Clinton campaign. The first video explained the dark secrets and the hidden connections and organizations the Clinton's campaign uses to incite violence at Trump rallies. The second video exposed a diabolical step-by-step voter fraud strategy discussed by top Democratic operatives and showed one key operative admitting that the Democrats have been rigging elections for 50 years. Part 3 of the undercover investigation released today dives further into the backroom dealings of Democratic politics. It exposes prohibited communications between Hillary Clinton's campaign, the DNC, and the nonprofit organization Americans United for Change, and it's all disguised as a duck. Hold on, just listen. Several Project Veritas Action undercover journalists catch Democracy Partners founder directly implicating Hillary Clinton in FEC violations. It's made clear that high-level DNC operative Creamer realized that this direct coordination between Democracy Partners and the campaign would be damning when he said, quote, "In the end, it was the candidate, Hillary Clinton, the future president of the United States, who wanted ducks on the ground," says Creamer in one of several exchanges. "So, by God, we would get ducks on the ground, and don't repeat that to anybody." It was earlier this year when people wearing Donald Duck costumes started showing up at Donald Trump events all over the country. Brad Woodhouse is the president of Americans United for Change, and he worked with Robert Creamer, Scott Fovel, and DNC Rapid Response Coordinator Aaron Black to launch their Donald Ducks campaign. After the first video in this series, Woodhouse fired Scott Fovel, his national field director. In the video, the operatives go on to explain their plot. Quote, "Let me tell you something. I think she, Hillary Clinton, has the right instinct on this. This thing is resonating, but that story is not exactly what you want to hear about how presidential decision-making happened," said Woodhouse. However, the originator of the Donald Ducks scheme was supposed to remain secret. Robert Creamer goes on to add, "I was actually on a plane to go to London last week. Christina Reynolds, Deputy Communications Director for Hillary for America, calls saying, quote, 'I have good news and bad news. The good news is the candidate would like to have a mascot following around the duck. I mean Trump,' end quote. Creamer then says, 'If the future president wants ducks, we will put ducks on the ground.' Hillary Clinton and the DNC wanted the Donald Ducks agitators at Trump and Pence campaign events. The direct involvement of the campaign and the Democratic National Committee with Americans United for Change and activists wearing Donald Duck costumes smacks strongly of illegal coordinated campaign expenditures. Federal campaign law experts have said the ducks on the ground are likely public communications for the purposes of the law. It's political activity opposing Trump, paid for by Americans United for Change funds, but controlled by Clinton and her campaign. Representatives of Clinton's campaign were on daily conference calls, which PVA journalists witnessed with Creamer, AUFC managers, and their operatives. They were talking about where to send the duck and the duck's message. Not only was the campaign in on it, but apparently Donna Brazil's Democratic National Committee was in on it as well. After last week's stories released by Project Veritas Action, Americans United for Change fired Scott Fovel, and Robert Creamer announced to the DNC that he was stepping down from campaign responsibilities. James O'Keefe and Project Veritas Action, have filed a complaint with the Federal Elections Commission. We shall see if that goes anywhere, even with having all of his ducks in a row. Project Veritas Action Fund, aka Project Veritas Action, was founded by James O'Keefe to investigate and expose corruption, dishonesty, self-dealing, waste, fraud, and other misconduct. You can follow their continued efforts online during this time of apocalypse. Yes, that word, translated literally from Greek, is through the concealed, meaning disclosure of knowledge or lifting the veil or revelation. So indeed, when people say we are experiencing a time of biblical proportions, they may be telling the truth. And that's Veritas.
And now for the Dolores County Sheriff's Roundup for the week of October 17th through the 23rd. A deputy responded to the Groundhog area for a welfare check on a juvenile. A deputy responded to a county residence for a civil standby. A wallet was found in town and is currently at the sheriff's office. A report of horses on the road southwest of town was handled by county residents. That's it for today's roundup. Stay tuned for more updates later this week.
For today's High Country happenings, October 31st, next Monday, there will be a trick-or-treat at the Vista Grand Inn in Cortez from 5 to 6:30 p.m. and at the Valley Inn in Mancos from 4 to 6 p.m. Get out of the cold and discover the best decorating and best treats in the county. No early birds. They are excited to see kids visit them. For more information, in Cortez, call 564-1122 and in Mancos, 533-9031. Halloween in downtown Cortez on Saturday, October 29th. There will be registration for the costume contest at 12. The contest is judged at 1 p.m. at the Cortez Cultural Center, and then join the trick-or-treat parade, followed by a pumpkin festival beside Moose and More. Games, face painting, photo booth, and lots of fun. Each activity costs 2 tickets, 4 for $1, 24 for $5, 50 for $10, and 120 for $20. And Dove Creek State Line Bar and Grill is hosting a White Trash Bash themed Halloween party this Saturday, October 29th, starting at 8 p.m. Music by DJ Martine, and you can dress for the theme or however you want. Awesome prizes for best costumes. free shuttle, and RV parking if you want to bring your house to stay the night. They have also launched their new website in addition to their Facebook page, and that's thestatelinebarandgrill.com. All of the happenings are posted up on our DCTV News at Noon Facebook page, along with the embedded YouTube replays of the live show and the DCTV 5-day forecast. Be in touch. Let us know about your event or job listing or notice. Email us at dcbnnews@gmail.com or call us at the station at 677-411-9, and we'll be sure to get it on air.
Thanks for tuning in. A reminder that this program is aired live at noon Monday through Wednesday, then rebroadcast at 2:30 and 8 p.m., and again aired Thursday, Friday, and Saturday in the same order at noon, 2:30, and 8 p.m. each day respectively.
And again, check us out on Facebook. We'd love for you to like us there and spread the word. Talk Tuesday is shifting to Wednesday this week. Joyce Barnett will be in studio to talk about the ambulance service ballot issue. That will be Wednesday, directly following the news.
For Kendra Cook, Jerry Tope, and everyone at DCTV with the News at Noon program out of Dove Creek, USA, I'm Kelsey Kiesling. Thanks for watching.